Greetings and welcome to my dear Aries. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. Tarot of the Twin Sun is a functional division. Within the order of the Twin Sun, please take only what you will. The first house is open. This is a reading for any placements within the Aries strata. This also activates the axis of the 1 and the 7. Now this axis is cardinal air versus cardinal fire, from the 7 to the 1 and the 1 to the 7. Essentially what is opened up is the loss of the self through the other, or perhaps the balancing out of faith and predictability in terms of that, clairvoyance in terms of the path of the fool, okay, in particular, and the path of the innocent, okay. Now, with Aries, there is a high degree of movement, especially represented through the Ashwini Kumars, wherein the twins of the Ashwini, the twin horse, is essentially pushed forward. Regardless of any sort of block or any sort of obstacle, they do in the most efficient and quick manner essentially anything that the energy of Aries would represent. Okay, and that has to do with faith, it has to do with ambition and drive, it has to do with execution, and it's the beginning and the gateway towards the houses of the self, 1 through 6. Okay, so therein solar energy, but primarily Mars energy is enacted. Okay. Now, it's interesting because what you impart into the world as an Aryan native essentially has to do with actions that are represented through Mars, karmas, okay, that have an effect. I mean, whether it's positive or negative, it really doesn't matter. There's a space in between that in which the critical sort of view of Libra, in which they're trying to balance out your efforts, okay, sort of, bring about this action, this impulse, okay. So the interesting thing is that these people will view you as someone who is placing faith through abstraction, okay, through the unknown, the ability to embrace Neptune as well, primarily Neptune, and to move forward into Venus, into the realm of Venus. Now, the interesting thing is that the activation that is seen through the lens of your significant others, okay, people that come into your life that are significant in some degree, to some degree, wherein their air, their quality of intelligence imparts through their communication, or perhaps through their need to balance out the energies of these two from the 12th to the first, 12th to the first to the second house. So it's the 12 in the second house. And they see you as someone who is essentially coming into a form of reality in which, from abstraction, from the great unknown, from the wealth of the sea of the infinite that comes from the end and the closure in the 12th house with Piscean energy, okay, essentially there's a blooming that occurs with the first and sort of pilgrimage, okay, sort of the first step, okay, into the unknown, and then essentially grounding that in a Venusian way to possibilities that reflect the relationship between Venus and the Earth, okay. So it's a very interesting way to see, for them to see you through that lens. There also is a possibility of you seeing within these people a perfectionist that is on some sort of need to gravitate in the realm of the shadow, okay, to methodologically approach systems of balance, of binary systems, of relationships in particular, trying to balance out and perfect a method that would explore the possibilities of polarity, okay? The possibilities of polarity with likes and dislikes, strong hates and loves, okay? Hates and loves. And exploring the sort of dynamic in between the two to find a sense of transformation. Now, what Libra actually seeks, what these people that you significantly encounter in your life seek out, is essentially a need to coalesce to polarization, to essentially find out what they really like or dislike about, say, relationships, or perhaps even you, and then to celebrate through the union of Venus and Mars some sort of peace and peaceful resolution after conflict. Now, the interesting thing is that you will trigger them through your actions of independence especially, and your faith and your ambition and your drive and your motivation and your impulse, your reactive quality. It will create something that is nuclear, something that is extremely capable of utter destruction in terms of what they experience, whoever they are, and essentially reconstruction, transformation through that, and the solidification of a methodology of balancing out different karmas that you may incite in them, okay? Now that is something that, I'm just wrapping on here. We're going to move into now the tarot reading, which is time timestamp would be about 5-minute marker. We're going into a reading of karma for the month of March 2023, and then we'll be going on into an incident of that karma in a second reading, and then to the Great Mirror, okay? Okay, so for the month of March, we have the Ten of Rods in the past, the past, more recent past, or perhaps extended past. Ten of Rods. Okay, it doesn't indicate whether it's in the reverse or it's in the upright. There also is the Six of Swords in the reverse. There also is the Nine of Cups in the reverse. Now, what I see here for Aryan natives as well as placements in Aries is an activation of your 7th house through the indication of the Six of Swords here. Six of Swords usually is represented by a ferry, a ferry as in a boat that has two people, okay? And these two people are moving away with the Six of Swords, with the current that is sort of helping them drive in a certain way, helping them move, according to essentially a flow of some sort, okay? Now the flow is being sought out. If it's in the reverse, it means that no more traveling is indicated. If you've gone through any recent experiences wherein there was a sense of a burden, okay, a sense of heaviness when it comes to essentially the path of the heart, its expansion, and essentially having to deal with burdens, that is essentially over, okay? There is no need to run away from that in this month. What is coming to be in this month, potentially for you and for others that have a karmic influence that is tied to the energy of Aries, essentially is a coming back, okay? No longer escaping or running away from burdens and facing those and actually seeing how there was something about this past trauma or this past burden that is being sort of set loose, okay? It's coming to a closure, okay? This could be sort of a way to really balance out, trying to understand why there may be a difference of why it was a burden in the first place, okay? And essentially understanding how the paths and the currents are pushing you, and noticing how there's some sort of sympathy or empathy in this act, okay? If you are in a relationship with another, or you've been exploring with another type of relationship, what I see here are two minds uniting with two swords of justices that indicate the Ten of Swords, but also the Two of Swords, okay? Now, with that, there's a possibility of some form of closure of difference and uniting the two, becoming in the mind with another, okay? And understanding something of an emotional undercurrent that is actually pushing you. Whether or not you were aware of this emotional undercurrent in the past doesn't really matter, because you are focusing on that now, some sort of emotional connection, okay, that unites two different minds and promotes harmony, okay, through your 7th house. There also is a possibility of moving towards a type of relationship in which arbitrarily, that is by randomness, okay, but by choice at the same time, there's something about you choosing to do something when it comes to your options. What I see here on, in a general sense, okay, is essentially you overcoming your fears in this month, okay? Not that you know, would have fears. I mean, I'm not saying that you clearly had, you know, some sort of like a trauma, you had to run away from it or anything like that. I see here a very responsible person in which they pay homage, or they honor that in which that was driving them in terms of intuition, in terms of moving forward, seeing different perspectives. And for the month of March, I see here a very strong indication of coming clear in this path, trying to understand this path and seeing where you've been, where you've gone, and how you've returned to that in which, you know, would set you in a state of conquering your fear in some way, shape, or form. Because I see here a lot of clarity of mind and presence of mind here. Okay, and this has to do also with a relationship with another, in terms of a new perspective, in terms of what you have been sort of pushed to do, in terms of emotional current or tidal influence. Okay, now let's move further and explore a bit more about this reading. Switch over to 1890s deck, a very old deck from BP Gamal, Parisian French school deck. Yeah, you might find that you are actually going to be gifted with quite a bit in terms of so-called manifestation. There might be a lot that has to do with many options coming to your foray, to your peripheral, to your horizon, and essentially you becoming a master of all those, actually being able to choose from a buffet of potentiality, from like many different options, choose something. At the same time, it might feel like in the future, you might learn from this experience, wherein it's not that you're picky. It's not that like you didn't have a choice either. It's just that it seems like the sort of outcome is uniform. Any option you choose will have the sort of the effect of righteousness, let's say, or the effect of circumstance. So we have here the Seven of Rods in the the Seven of Pentacles in the down right here. Okay, this has to do with legacy. It has to do with trying to find order or a sense of things in which there seems to have been some sort of something missing. Okay, I think a seed was planted here, and there was a need to address what you have in terms of your own reality, in terms of your own ability to find committed relationships, to find a place of work, to find a way to bloom from all that, to find a sense of order. Okay, well, because the Knight of Swords here and the Page of Swords is indicated in terms of karma, there's a lot of like wondering about this, trying to figure out a way around, or trying to essentially come up with a way to essentially, I would say, be fair, or at least make a choice in order to bring forward this Tower event. Okay, what this Tower event is leading to is the Nine of Cups in the reverse, which showed up earlier exactly right here. You're coming to a point in which you are embracing your actions, and actually you're trying to find a sense of order or a sense of righteousness in the events that are coming up for the month of March. One in particular will have to do with a humbling experience in which you will be humbled with the indication of the Seven and the Six of Pentacles in reverse. Okay, what does this mean? With the Six of Pentacles, the sun that radiates here, essentially, it brings forward this Tower moment in which any sort of artificial structuring of your mind or your resources or your sense of power will be humbled. Okay, and then what's indicated is Six of Pentacles in reverse. Perhaps you've been planting your seeds in the wrong places, and perhaps you may have gotten inadvertent results from that. Okay, perhaps manifesting a sense of work, a sense of relationship, many different friends, and essentially you are coming into clarity when there's the possibility of the Tower essentially bringing you down a notch and humbling you in terms of your very efforts in the past, regardless of where you've planted your seeds. Okay, now in a bigger perspective, I do see here a possibility to come to this Nine of Cups, okay, in the reverse, and essentially really choose to take what's given to you. If there's a feeling of scarcity in the month of March, and in general, in terms of your own resourcefulness, or in terms of what you've been trying to achieve, whatever that may be, perhaps there's a possibility to take the gift, okay, and to really just go with it, okay? And I stress the word gift here because often things will come into our life in which there seems to be a randomness to it, or perhaps you wouldn't know what the outcome is. In terms of like taking the chance, I see here an ability to just really take the chance with anything randomly, to embrace the sort of carnage and the difference that comes through chaos, as well as Uranus and Neptune, okay, and to essentially come into a sense of order on your own, okay, and essentially to reach out, to give a lending hand. But it's like giving back to yourself, like taking something that seems like it doesn't even have value, yet imbuing it with a sense of purpose, okay, a sense that it was going to happen anyway, that you were going to do that anyway. Underscoring all of this is the key, is the Queen of Rods, okay, and the Queen of Rods is looking to the moon as well as a possibility to a relationship of some sort, trying to balance out different emotional differences is indicated here on the cards, and perhaps you are going to be sort of a facilitator for that, to understand, you know, how subjectively emotional sort of resonance with another person, or perhaps with someone that is particularly concerned with balancing out karmic accounts with you, will give a sense of clarity. There's a sense of clarity or a sense of loyalty in terms of what's been transacted on an emotional level. And perhaps there is a possibility of you finding the wealth to water further any sort of commitments you have in a social sphere, or perhaps in things that you planned in the past when it comes to your ambitions or your drives in terms of relationship realities based on this terra firma, and essentially coming into a way of clarity in all that. So what I see on an incidental level is the need to address also your legacy, to see where you've been, where you could essentially quickly go to, and you might find that there is something about what you've expected that is actually proving to be fruitful, and you might find that your choices for the month of March is they're actually whittling down. There's a sense of purification and a sense of intensity, and I think that could be a very good thing. Now, if you feel like there's a lack of a structure right now, it's rightly so, and it could be because of this humbling process, this need to embrace the tower and to embrace transformation from the ruins of your mind, or from the ruins of some past version of yourself, to reconstruct something and to come up with a sense of order in yourself, or to embrace the chaos, to essentially take what comes your way, you know. So this is something that is a gift for you in this month. Now, we're going to move now into the Great Mirror. And the Great Mirror is a 9-card spread devised by the order of the Twin Sun to see particular karmas that may exist for the energy of Aries in any astrological placement that you may have within Aries, okay? And this will activate the 7th house, okay? First in the 7th axis, and essentially it's a 9-card spread intended to show karmic influences between you and a significant other. The significant other can be someone new, someone old, someone who's familiar, someone who's distant, someone who's gone. These are all possibilities, okay? So we're going to look into that Great Mirror to essentially see some of the deeper aspects that have to do with some of the karmas that are timeless in nature, but also to see some of the more conscious elements, what's going on in terms of actions between you and a significant other. Okay, one cut. 6 of Swords in the reverse again. Okay, so I think okay, interesting. You could be dealing with someone here that you have experienced something with recently. If not, in the month of March, there's a possibility of seeing perspective to this person. This perspective comes in a deep knowing. I think you're protected, regardless of how or in what manner this person is delivering to you a sense of an offering of some sort. And I think because you have all these options, and it seemed quite random, it might not really interest you. Perhaps you may appear to be untouchable in some sort of way. There's something about you that is very much aware of their own field and the paths not trodden, but the paths that everyone takes. In this respect, you have a healing aura. You have the ability to see things righteously. And not only that, there's something that is deeply mythical or mystical about who you are. And there's something very pure and innocent in that respect. I think ultimately you're going through a transformation that excludes them, but they are here to promote something in terms of love, in terms of some sort of emotional transaction, in terms of promoting creativity. But I think because you are very, at least from this reading, you're very attuned on an intuitive level. It means that the paths of love are closed in some sort of way. You're able to observe this and to see passers-by who adore you, even though you may be invisible, even though you may be not exactly, you're sort of just there, not on the path, but observing the path, okay? And this is a motif that is run through the channel. It's something that has to do with the elevation of the occult, okay? Of the subconscious mind and becoming conscious through that. This also has to do essentially with this offer of some sort. I see here someone who is looking for the path. The path is something that you have observed. I think you know this. At the same time, there's something about you that would offer a token of gratuity or gratitude towards this person. I think there's someone, I think you want to essentially nurture this in some sort of way. Be supportive of their path. The difference here is where and how to inspire someone. If you do, they potentially can pull up their walls. There also is something about them very concerned with their own self-image, even though it is something that they are called to do. They are called to essentially push forward something in terms of like what they initially feel about you. Okay, they will act upon this. At the same time, they will oscillate just a little bit. They will move towards you, but then they're always reflective on the path of love especially. Okay. Now, if this is a love relationship, there's something about it that creates tension, and I think you provide essentially a way to come up with inspiration, of true inspiration, of holding the keys to some sort of secret domain, okay, of the dream world and reveries, okay, reveries that flow through you that essentially are representative of the possibilities of different paths or different timelines that you may be watching. I think you are in the right to do what you have in terms of your own health, your own wealth, okay? And to impart upon this, it would require a great deal of rite of passage that they would have to go through. And they are seeking for this path. At the same time, there's something about them and this relationship and the karma that you have in this month that is tied directly to the tower, in which you are essentially conjuring this energy of essentially breaking through artificial structures of the mind. This person is here to help you with that if you want it. Because I think what they seek for is the path of true joy, what really makes them feel content. Even perhaps, even as they're moving on this path, there's something about them that would rather not, that is suggested here through the cards, okay? It's a very interesting dynamic because they are called to honor emotional currency. They're called to honor some form of love or some sort of like glory when it comes to the idea of love. At the same time, they're here to essentially rely on themselves in some way, shape, or form for that narrative, for that story arc, for that archetype to work out in some sort of way as the lover. Now, the interesting thing is that what they have in front of them, it doesn't mean that they're going to cross that bridge. There's something about them that seeks out joy, that seeks out camaraderie, that seeks out almost unconditionality, and they're questioning the very nature and the way in which they deliver so-called love. Okay, when someone approaches love in terms of a romantic element or a romantic crisis, wherein the longing for that which is lost or the longing for that which is not had, it creates a type of disparity. Okay. And if this person were to actually look inside, perhaps they would find something different. And perhaps there's something about them and your power to essentially humble them in some way, shape, or form, and yet support them to bring forward the element of healing and detachment. I think primarily you are quite detached when it comes to the situation. There is something about it that speaks of an inner tension to do things independently of any other path that would, sort of unite you two potentially. What comes out of this is what I see as a type of respect system, okay? Something that has to do with the institutionalization of ideas, the culmination of two different sort of ways of thinking, and then harmonizing into the sort of paths that surround a home, or that the driveway that comes into a sense of home or community, okay? So there's something like a pilgrimage, something that you can pay homage to, something about doing something for the greater good of the community, where there's charity in this type of situation. I think this is really what underscores and brings the reading home. We have here an interesting division between the 7 and the 8 of Pentacles in the reverse. There also is the 3 and the 8. The 3 and the 8. It would be the 3 and the 8. Or the 3 and the 4 of rods. Okay, now all that numbering aside, I do see here a possibility of them coming to a surprising sort of realization of their own power, okay? On your side, it's you coming up with a sense of that which you've been waiting for, but you're not taking it. You're supporting it, but you're not taking it. It's a very interesting thing, kind of like fishing. You don't have to take every fish that you find, but there's something about that sort of resembles the situation. I think if you were to live by your ideals, especially this person, if they were to live by their ideals, there's something about them that could potentially come and meet you with the same kind of fire that you seek out in general, meaning that you seek out the gift, and if it comes to you, perhaps you'd be willing to take it, perhaps you'd get out of yourself in order to do something about it, or perhaps you'd just be supportive of that. And I think to be supportive of that is something that you would be very, very well to honor. In terms of your own resources, you don't have to give so much, but you can say that it's there. And as that being, that exemplar, you can actually provide a way of understanding. You can understand this person. Now, that's the best I can do in terms of this reading. There also is a possibility here of getting out of, essentially, I see here like a need to get out of timelines that you've been in, or timelines that you've been observing, and then as you realize that the nature of time is bending, that it is in flux, that sometimes things stretch out more than other times, and sometimes time moves faster. As you step aside from that, you can truly be an observer, okay? And you're dealing with someone here that is looking for perhaps a good time, but also someone who is not truly available at the same time. It's a very interesting dynamic, and I'd rather prefer not to go into it any deeper. I do wish you well, my dear Aries. Thank you. Bye-bye.